All right, welcome everybody. Boy, you know, I'm excited for this. I'm excited that we have a guest here. This is not just any guest. We're doing this show. This is a new show. We're doing this Ravens playoff preview. And I was originally going to call this the Ravens roll to the Super Bowl, but I don't want to get ahead of myself. So we won't jinx anything. We're gonna go high level and just we'll look at it as a playoff preview.
Yeah.
But I wanted to go big with this, and I was able to get a guest to join us, and not just any guest. We definitely went big with this. And so the guest that we have here, I'm going to give a proper introduction. This man had a 20-year NFL career, went to 3 Super Bowls. He's a 2-time Super Bowl champion, first team All-Pro, Pro Bowler, Golden Toe Award winner, and member of the Baltimore Ravens Ring of Honor, Mr. Matt Stover.
Mr. Matt.
Matt, thank you so much for being here with us.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. It's always good to talk with Ravens fans, of course, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Right. Well, hey, you're in the right place. You're in the right place. And look, we got plenty of things to talk about. We really appreciate your time. We're going to be mindful of your time as well, because I know you're busy, and we're going to talk about some of the things that you're doing now, in the post-playing career. But I thought, if it's good with you, we'll kind of start from the beginning and kind of just roll through your journey as an NFL player. You've been out of the league, obviously, now for a little while, and have a whole lot of things that keep you busy. But I wanted to, if you're good with it, I wanted to kind of jump back in the Wayback Machine here and talk about the first thing that jumped out to me. I read that Matt Stover participated in the punt, pass, and kick competition as a kid. So this is great, because obviously I see you nodding and confirming this. Here's what's so interesting. I've been to games. You see the kids come out there, they throw the thing, and I think, I don't know who these kids are, or why they do this, or how they ended up doing this, and what happens to them. You were one of those kids. And so can you give us, just like from a real high level, like how old were you? How'd you do? Like, what was that process?
I was 11 years old, and at that time you really don't know if you have what skill sets you have. By about the age of 13, 14, if you're going to be a golfer, tennis player, you better be locked in, right? So
Yeah.
At that point, I really didn't know, but I won my elementary school competition. Then I went to the recreation center, won that. Then I went to the next rec center, where it's more of a Dallas. I won that. Then I won Texas. Then I won the region. And then I got to the nationals, right? So it was quite fun. That's where the kicking actually all started.
Really?
And the shoes that I wore are the same the Nikes that Forrest Gump ran in, if you remember those, right?
Oh, wow.
The second biggest claim to fame was being
that's
of a young Matt Stover.
I look back and I go, oh my God, those were perfect kicking shoes, because you couldn't use cleats. They wouldn't let you use cleats. You had to use a shoe. So that was a perfect thing. And then that was 1979. So I was 11. So I was born in 68. I'm 56 now. And what was really cool about that is it gave me the political stature in my community that I was a good punter and a kicker, right? And during the halftime show of the Dallas Cowboys, it was December 2nd, 1979 against the Giants, because I ended up being drafted by the Giants. It's crazy. So and I had the crowd going, ooh, ooh.
That's a good sign.
That's great.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah. So it was really neat to be a part of that. So that's kind of where it all started, and where it gave me the spark to want to pursue it. And nobody at that point ever told me to go kick a football, but I was always out in my front yard kicking, and that's where it all started.
Interesting. So it was almost like a genetic thing. A young Matt Stover, just always out in the yard, just kicking that football, no matter what, not being prompted by anything.
Well, I was ADD is all you could be, so my parents just gave me a ball. And go play with the ball.
Just go play.
Go kick something.
Go kick it.
So you go to Louisiana Tech, and you're there now. While you were there, do you feel like you had a good chance of making it into the NFL, or like was that even on the radar, or were you like, I'm here to make it all the way, or was it just like, this, I'm loving doing this, I have the opportunity right now, but I have other plans? Like, what was your mindset when you're at
I,
Louisiana
I
Tech?
always came. Thanks for the question, Tim. I always came from the attitude, why not me? You know, and I didn't know if I had the talent, but I knew I was good because when I watched these other kickers, including the pro kickers, there was a guy that kicked in the USFL that would come behind my high school and kick, and I'd go kick with him. And when I was 16 and he saw me kick a ball and he went, "How old are you?" And I said 16. Wow. He went, "Oh man. Okay." And he kind of gave me the confidence, right? And then from there, I would go kick against Florida State or Texas A&M or Baylor, all these big schools, and I'm just out kicking those guys. And, you know, Florida State, I'm in there kicking 53 yards. Auburn, I kicked a 50-yard, you know. So I say this because at that point, I started seeing, you know what, I'm pretty good at this. And I just love to work at it. I mean, really work at it. And then after my senior year at La Tech, I had 3 workouts. I had one with the Giants, one with the Cowboys, one with the San Diego Chargers. And all 3 of them wanted me after those workouts. I didn't get to go to the combine, and the Giants ended up drafting me in the 12th round, 329th out of 331.
Yeah.
I mean, that's so irrelevant. It's like, really? Okay. You might as well have been a free agent. But I was the last guy standing in that entire draft. Yes, wow. I was. Junior Seau made it 19 and I made it 20. So I was the last one standing.
Wow. That's incredible. Well, yeah. And, you know, it's so funny because that was one of the things that jumped out at me because I saw that, right, that you're drafted. It's the 12th round. I believe it was the 1990 draft. Mm-hmm. And, you know, you mentioned a word, of course, there saying, irrelevant. That's beyond, the 12th round is beyond what Mr. Irrelevant, you know, even is nowadays. And the idea that then,
now, yeah.
Right.
Right.
And that idea that person who's lower than Mr. Irrelevant can turn around and have a 20-year NFL career is just, is incredible. And so you go to the Giants. Parcells is the coach. Bill Belichick's the defensive coordinator for that Giants team. You win a Super Bowl your rookie year, but you are on the IR. So my question for this is kind of a 2-parter here. Number one, what is that like being like you're a rookie, but you're on the IR and then you're watching the team, you know, in the Super Bowl? And then I have a second part of that that's a little bit more detailed that I have to believe no one's ever asked you this before. But as a player at the Super Bowl on IR, where are you watching the game? Are you on the sideline? Are you up in a suite? Are you like running down from a suite when the game's over to celebrate with the teammates?
Suite? Are you kidding me? You're in a suite? No.
Maybe a bleacher chair, a folding chair somewhere.
Literally on that sideline, it was where I was. I got paid to wear a Giants starter pullover. I'm standing next to John Bon Jovi and Phil Simms. Yes, sir.
Ah,
yeah.
Okay.
Wow.
Welcome to the NFL, rookie.
Yeah, John was friends with Belichick. Belichick got him on the sideline. And then Phil Simms was injured with a broken ankle because Hostetler had to come in. And that year, we beat the Bills with the wide right. And I was on IR because they stashed me. They didn't want me to go to another team, so I pulled my quad on one of the kickoffs in preseason.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And
the old quad injury.
Sure. No, yeah.
I don't think they're going to be suspending Parcells this year. You know?
Right.
So, but at the end of the day, it was an opportunity for me to learn, and I did learn from Matt Barr. Matt Barr came in to kick in for Raul Alegre. Raul had a history of being hurt, but he was a very good kicker. The issue was that if he did get hurt, they wanted a young guy coming in. They didn't want to spend a lot of money, but I couldn't come off of injury reserve until after the 4th week. So it was week 3 that he gets hurt, and then he couldn't come. Matt Barr had to come in. He kicks a game winner against that game against the Arizona Cardinals, and Parcells isn't going to fix nothing that ain't broken, right? He was so superstitious, right? And I was making $78,000. It wasn't like I was, breaking the bank on him, So they were like, yeah, he's fine. And then Parcells ended up, retiring or quitting after that season. And then Sean Landetta, as you know, Sean from Towson University, Sean was the punter there, friends with Belichick, told Belichick that I was the best young kicker in the NFL, guy coming up. And I was signed literally the next day because Sean Landeta told Belichick that you got him right here. You need to sign him because he was looking for a young kicker. So Sean and I still talk because I told him, dude, I owe you, man.
Yeah.
That's pretty awesome.
Yeah, but I had to go kick in Cleveland for 5 years. Oh my gosh. Talking about cut team. Wow, that was a play. The old stadium too, right, Tim? I mean, it was the old municipal stadium. Mistake on a lake. It was tough.
Yeah.
Well, and this you mentioned Belichick, and obviously he's in the news a lot right now. You were with him in Cleveland. What are your thoughts as a player? What are your thoughts right now? I mean, do you got the inside track on Bill? Do you know where he's going right now? As he hit you?
I don't have an inside track, but I can tell you every player that's played for him respects him. No question. He's a heck of a coach. I became the kicker I am because of that guy. No question. Really? I got over the fear of being cut. I got thick skin. It was like, what are you going to throw at me that I haven't been thrown at me already? I mean, he and Parcells wore me out.
Wow.
Because they needed to know. I mean, they would humiliate me in practice to get me to miss, and I wouldn't miss it.
Wow.
So he and I, he was patient with me. He gave me some time. He gave me 2 years. My third year, I had to prove it. I did. And then I had a 20-year career after that, a 16-year career after that. So I respect the heck out of the guy, done phenomenal things in the league. It's tough to be a consistent winner in the NFL. You remember, every 4 years your team turns over. You lose key players and coaches, and think about how many coaches he's had that are now head coaches, right? It's tough. So that's what I'll give you.
No, that makes total sense. And I kind of want to jump from that if I could, because I want to talk a little bit about another somewhat controversial figure, even though I personally believe that's completely unfair, in Art Modell. So obviously Art owned the Browns, made the move to Baltimore. He's the owner of the team. So I don't know necessarily that you would have had a lot of opportunities to interact with him. But in general, what were your experiences with Art Modell? Personally, I think it's asinine that he's not in the Hall of Fame. But just kind of curious, did you have a lot of experiences with an Art Modell?
Well, in his final years, literally, I lived in the next neighborhood next to him in Baltimore, and I would go over and sit with he and Pat and watch the Super Bowl together.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
That's how close. That's how close I was with him. Yeah.
Wow.
So, Art was always out of practice, and he would park his cart right in front of where I was practicing on a side field, and I'd have to kick over him. And the first time he did it, he went, "You better not hit me." And I looked at him like, "You pay me too much money to hit you, man. I'm not hitting you." Right. And so I would be kicking over him, and we loved it. And his wife Pat one time came to practice, and it just happened to be after I missed a game winner, and which I only missed like 3 of them. But she came out that practice, and she said, "Hey Matt, come over here." And I went, and she's sitting there next to Art, and she looks at me. She said, "Hey, don't ever do that again." Art rolls out of the cart like, "Oh my God, she did not say that."
That's awesome.
Ozzy was standing next to him. They were all laughing. I'm going,
wow.
"Gee, thanks a lot." I'm turning red. So Art and I had a really close relationship, but I do understand the animosity that the city of Cleveland has for him. But I tell you, he got a raw deal there, man. And when that Gateway project was being built and they told him to bow out of that Jacobs Field, and he did. They said they were going to take care of him. And then the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame and all the other stuff was being built, and there was no money. And he's having to borrow money to pay Andre Rison. Right? It's like he had no cash flow coming in. He had to go. I mean, because he's got this new stadium. He got the buyout, all the seat licensing and all that stuff started coming in. So he was able to, so he had to do what was best for his family. And it was the right move financially for him. But boy, did it tarnish his reputation and his name with the city of Cleveland. And I get that.
I'm sure that had to be tough for him too, to.
Oh, it broke him. It broke him. But he had to know it was what was best, and financially, right? Business, and Baltimore deserves a team. It does, and they weren't getting one. They were not going to get one.
Yep. Yep.
and they got one, right?
Yeah.
So, and they've proven it in a middle-sized market that they earned it. And, 2 Super Bowls, come on now, right?
Yeah.
And the possible third one this year, right? Let's go.
That's right.
So, yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's
Well,
awesome.
and of course, Baltimore loves him. We adore the guy, and we were Tad and I were there when they brought the Ravens back. Both of us were fans of different teams because we didn't have a team growing up, and so I think Tad was a Redskins fan. I was I think I was a Bears fan because
I remember you were a Bears fan. Yeah,
and so
I can't
but yeah,
even call them Commanders. I can't call them Commanders.
No. As you can see, neither do we. Neither do we.
Yeah.
So you move out of Cleveland, obviously coming to Baltimore. Baltimore's a unique city, in that if you grew up here, you love the city, but a lot of times when people come in from the outside, they don't, really appreciate the city as much. It can be a tough city. What was your take coming to the city? How long did it take for you to really kind of feel at home in Baltimore?
Well, first of all, my job depends on where I kick, right? So I got a major upgrade in a stadium going from Cleveland Municipal to Memorial.
Right, yeah, sure.
Sure. It's
one was built in 1929. The other one was built in 59. I mean, hell, that's 30 years.
It's massive.
I mean, it was great. It was pretty cool, So
running water and everything.
I mean, wow, yeah. But it was in the middle of a neighborhood. It was kind of like, this was okay.
Sure.
But that happened. The city just embraced us. Now, mind you, we were an abused adopted stepchild, right? So, I mean, we were getting our butts kicked in '95 in Cleveland, to say the least. And when we came over, we really didn't know. We didn't know anybody. The organization was brand new, and some people came over, but we really, as players, didn't have much help. I had 2 brand new babies. It was hard. My wife and I, we rented. We didn't know how long we were going to be around. So don't feel sorry for me, mind you. I'm making good money, so I was like, okay. But I mean,
but there's still an emotional toll that's going behind this thing. I mean, there's still a lot that's weighing on you.
It sucked. I mean, it really did. But it wasn't because of Baltimore. It's just the whole situation.
Yeah.
So that first year, all of us were just hanging on. We were just trying to survive. And Ted Marchibroda had such an old school philosophy. He would kill. I was tired after practice, and I'm a kicker. I don't do anything. I kick a ball, and I'm tired. I mean, he wore us out for 3 years, and then Brian Billick comes in 1999 and just flips the script, takes care of us, and we win immediately. And
Wow.
It had to do with Ozzie Newsome and Art Modell, having the guts to do that. And Brian was the right guy, because we wouldn't have won without him. And, some of the personnel moves he did was brilliant. And I owe a lot to Brian in my career, too, because I had 9 years with him. All 9 years that he was there, I was with him. So,
Wow.
But as a whole, the Baltimore people and my experience, we lived there for 21 years, guys. 21 years. I'm in Dallas now because I promised my wife I would get her back home to Texas. So, COVID hit. I had my youngest son Joe plays golf at Texas A&M, and he was aspiring going into his junior year, and COVID hit, and it was like, all right, we're not even able to play golf around here. Let's get you down there. We get her home, and he started playing golf a lot and competing, and now he's at the top 10 school. So it's pretty good move for him. Yeah,
that's awesome, man. Yeah, things definitely played out well for you there, I guess. Now being able to be close to your son and everything.
Yeah. Well, my daughter moved down here, and my other son Jacob moved on, and they were 2 All-American lacrosse players. And the youngest was smart. He knew there was some type of future after collegiate lacrosse, because my older son Jacob played in the PLL too. So.
Oh wow! Okay.
Yeah, so he's pretty good. That's good
Man,
stuff.
so I think we can dispel any myth. I don't know why this myth exists. I want to dispel it now. This idea that like kickers aren't athletes and this stuff that you hear. Like, not only were you an athlete, but you clearly have a family of athletes, which is really impressive.
Well, we couldn't get into college academically, so we had to use our sports, man. That was me. I mean, my son couldn't have gotten to Texas A&M. No way. But he used his golf. He's pretty smart. He's pretty smart, but my wife's got all the brains, of course, right? So But yeah, getting the sports for us, and I think there's a lot of this lacking in our youth today. Sports teaches you so much about failure, success, how to deal with other people, the hardship, grit, all the things you've got to have to be excellent in this world. Sports really teaches you, and we did not insulate our children. We let them, we put him in crabs lacrosse and let McLaren and hammer on him. I was like, oof. Glad I'm not them, man. So, and I hope he's listening to this too. It'd be funny. And he said, I'm not that bad. And yeah, you were. So, so yeah, and lacrosse was a perfect sport for my kids. It really was, and to make one of the major, be on the top level, one of the major fives, come on, that's so difficult. I had to learn how to be a kicker, and how I got there is because Merton Hanks played 14 years in the NFL for the 49ers.
I remember him.
He was a teammate of mine in high school, right? I know. Okay. So I'm thinking I'm an athlete, and this guy, I'm like, oh God. If we played make it, take it in basketball, and I didn't get the ball first, I didn't have a chance.
Game over. Game over.
I was good, but no, I was game over. I couldn't miss either, and I think I beat him once out of 40 times. Wow. Because he'd be slam dunking it and all that one. Yeah, I can't do that. Yeah, so that's why I became a kicker, literally.
Wow, that's amazing. Well, and it is interesting here because, I want to fast forward a little bit in the career because you're established now, right? Like at that point in your career. And so now you're entrenched, you're a solid kicker in the NFL. But now we fast forward a little bit to that 2000 Ravens team. Now, I personally, and again, I'm curious to get your take on this, but I personally, looking through everything, I have to believe this was the best year of your professional life. You're named to the Pro Bowl. You make the All-Pro team. You win the Golden Toe Award for whatever that's worth. You win the Super Bowl. Pretty much the ultimate hat trick for any kicker. And so obviously we want to talk a little bit about that because we know from toward the public, the hype around the Super Bowl. Tim and I actually went to the 2012 Super Bowl with the Ravens and the Niners. And so we've kind of seen that side of it as well. But as a player, as a player, what's that like? Is your prep and your schedule significantly different? Do you try to just treat it as any other game? I mean, now we're going to the 2000 Super Bowl. Tim and I were in Florida at that time, and we were trying to go to that game. And so, this is something that, now it's you went to a Super Bowl as a rookie, but you were on IR, right? It's a different thing now.
I didn't play.
Yeah. So now you're in the league, you're established. What's this like?
Well, I would tell you, first of all, as that season was happening, we found our identity, and that was defense, offense, don't turn the ball over, punt the ball, or kick a field goal. They're not going to score more than 10 points on us, right? Yeah. So that was the motto, and, Tony Banks was benched for Dilfer. Dilfer manages the game better, and I have a whole lot of field goals because, we had a running game and a suspect quarterback with Dilfer.
Hey, Trent, if you're listening, love you, buddy.
Yeah. You got us one, man. We appreciate that.
Shut up, kicker. Shut up.
Right.
But that year was unique because of the identity of the team, and we played to our strengths. We didn't turn on each other, and we just scored enough points and didn't let them score enough. And you had a coach that was the offensive guru that had to eat crow. And, right, we're doing what's necessary to win ball games. The Tennessee rivalries, that was unbelievable that year. That was crazy. Yeah. But when you get to the Super Bowl and the playoffs, if you look at my career and how did I make it 20 years, when I got to November, December, January, Matt got even better, and I did. And it's a heightened level of prep and mental prep and your desire to want the ball goes up even more. It's just like, give me the ball, coach, but it's like, no, give me the ball. There's a difference, right? Yeah. So, and that's where I was. And that year I knew we were going to be kicking, and we were, and field conditions were horrible. These kickers are so dang spoiled today. Really? You don't even see mud on their jerseys. What?
No.
I mean, so the field conditions were bad, and so I had to learn how to kick and slop, and I did that in Cleveland. But all that came to fruition that year. But when you're getting ready for the Super Bowl, you have a couple weeks, and you're trying to stay in routine, but you're not. You're just not in routine. Everything's different. You go practice at other places. You really just got to kind of sterilize your environment as much as you can and stay focused. You can't get too much. When family comes in, everybody's coming in. You got to put it on your wife. You do it a little bit, but you set your boundaries. That's the key. Setting boundaries that are healthy so that you can do your job. It is a job. And I would say that you have to be thoughtful and considerate, but when you do that well, and the teams that do that the best are the teams that typically win, because the distractions will get to you, and it is a harder game to kick in. It just is, because world stage and the heart rate's at a 12, not at a 10. It's tough. You just got to really, when you're standing over the ball, it's harder to breathe. It's just the masters, it just is. So the ones who can settle that down the most during the course of the week, you can settle it down during the course of the game and breathe. And if you want to know what makes Justin Tucker one of the best kickers in the NFL, watch him breathe before every kick. Oh my gosh. Remember, he sings opera. So he's an operatic professional breather. And he'll suck in this breath, and everybody, I look at him and go, wow, there's sometimes I'm like sucking through a straw going, and I see this guy take this giant breath and I go, oh yeah, that's it right there. Cause then he blows up on it. It's really cool. Wow. But, so it's just harder to breathe. And so you gotta learn how to handle that and the atmosphere, and typically the ones who do it the best win.
Now, you mentioned the game plan, the Ravens game plan that year. And now, of course, we're known for having that 5-game stretch of no touchdowns where you are the offense, So I was talking to Tad. I was like, man, I'm really curious what the conversations were like in the locker room, because, obviously Dilfer's, maybe going to give it to you as being a hey kicker, but you're the one going, hey, buddy, I'm the one putting up the points here. Like what was that conversation? What was that?
Dilfer was so pissed off, because he wanted to do other things and then set me up for field goals. Oh, I got you 5 yards closer when we're passing each other on the field, right? I'm coming out to kick. He's coming up. Oh, I got you to the left hash, like you said. It was all about me and the kicking. I was going, dang right, let's go.
Yeah.
So Trent hated that, but he also respected it. So, and those 5 games was pretty crazy, where I had 49 consecutive points. I had 49. That's never going to be broke. That's I think the one before that was 32 by Don Cockcroft or Bland or somebody like that. I mean, it was 49 consecutive points by one player. No, it's not going to happen.
No, it shouldn't happen. It should not happen.
No, it shouldn't. And so it tells you during that gap, that's the critical part of the season right there. We didn't turn on each other. We could have easily turned. That defense could have been yada. Now, remember one instance. Offense didn't turn the ball over or something right before halftime. We got in the locker room. Just don't turn the ball over. Kick the damn ball. Stover will make it. And I went, dang right. Yeah, let's go.
You're like, tell him.
Come on, yeah. So, I remember that, because it was really just don't turn the ball over. And Stover's going to come in there, and we're going to do enough. We just got to get good field position. If you remember that, they weren't getting many yards, and we just, they would punt and we would punt, and we just kind of moved the field down and kick field goals. And that's really what Kyle Richardson kicking the ball inside the 20, 39 times that year or something like that. So it just worked out. Wow. Yeah. And I've got about 2 minutes, guys. I got to get going.
Yeah, absolutely. No, yeah, we'll make it quick here. So we want to talk a little bit about what you've been up to. Obviously, you created this business that I think is just so smart. It's called the Players Philanthropy Fund. And,
good job.
Yeah. And so I wanted to, kind of give you the opportunity to talk a little bit about what exactly the PPF does, and, the work behind it.
Well, it's a pretty unique platform for charitable giving. I created it back in 2010, my first year outside of the NFL, and it was to facilitate athletes in their charitable giving by giving them a safe platform to operate a foundation through. So no longer did an athlete have to have his own private foundation. He could plug into mine, and I allow him to operate underneath my charter, my EIN number. I do all the back office, and they raise the funds, do the programming, build the fields like what Ed Reed does. Mm-hmm. And, I've got Ray Lewis and Ed Reed, Dwayne Wade, Chris Paul. I've got 175 different athletes, and then I've got 578 different accounts that are not, on top of that are not accounts. So we've grown it, and we're going to do about $50 million through it this year. And so it's been a lot of fun to facilitate charitable giving, and we do it in a discounted manner. It took me 8 years to build it to where it was a very viable and quote, profitable nonprofit business. And it because I knew in order to scale it, we had to help the little guy out. So we don't require large deposits, but we do require them to be active and them to do the work that's necessary to be a nonprofit, and to do it with best practices, to do it where they're not corrupting their brand and making sure that they're staying safe, and they know what, we won't allow them. We force compliance. So we know all the rules and all the regulations, and we donate in over 29 different countries. We do every state in the union except West Virginia for some reason, whatever. And, But and that it's just been a blast. It really has been. So we created the Players Philanthropy Fund for the purpose of making sure that more of those charitable dollars go out to the charitable causes.
That's fantastic. I mean, it's such a great idea. It's so smart to create a platform like that facilitates charitable work. I know we need to let you go, so we want to be conscious of that. Last thing I will ask is just do you still watch the Ravens? How you feel about their chances in the playoffs this year as we move forward?
I do watch the Ravens. I used to be a Cowboy fan. I remember they're NFC. I know they're NFC. So if the Cowboys and the Ravens go, of course I'm a Ravens fan. Okay. I'm in the Ring of Honor. Okay. I'm in the Ring of Honor. But I've watched the Cowboys a little bit, and I grew up selling programs at the Cowboy games. So I watch a little bit of the Cowboys, but I watch all the Ravens games. And I think Harbaugh's done a fantastic job. I think that Jackson's a whole lot more mature than he was, and he's playing that way. And as a veteran, you see it, and when Joe Flacco stepped in that pocket his rookie year, and he was standing and slinging, Ray Lewis and I looked at each other. We went, "Let's go. Come on." And because we knew we had a slinger, we had a kid that could do it. We just needed to control the locker room. And I believe Jackson's got that locker room too. They've got a defensive team that's strong, right? And that's where I see that if Jackson can lean on that defense and not try to be the hero, just play Jackson football, right? And just play smart, they're going to win. But, he gets outside of that and he starts doing too much. That's when they're going to find themselves in trouble. And that's just a teammate would say that. I'd say, "Hey, Jack, just do your thing, man. Defense has got it too now. We got a good defense." I would have said something like that to him. So that's what I see. And I see a coaching staff that's highly prepared. You got a great, personnel with DaCosta. Bouchardi allows them to play coach and play and do the football thing, right? You got an owner that's a professional. He gets it. So it's cool.
Yep.
That's awesome. Well, listen, Matt, we could not be. I got so many more questions about the Ring of Honor and everything else. We'd love to have you on again sometime. But we really appreciate your time with this. Thank you so much for making the time to talk with us. We really appreciate and have so much respect for you and what you did, while playing for the Ravens and what you've done for the city of Baltimore.
Thanks, Tim.
And now beyond with your philanthropy work. So
appreciate it, guys. Good time. A lot of fun.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Have a good trip on the slopes.
Next week. Yeah.
All right.
See you guys. Bye.
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 Wow. All right, man. Well, there you go. So we, Matt Stover. I mean, look, first of all, incredibly cool guy. Very generous with his time there to share some stories and some memories with us. And again, we're working off of a time difference, a time delay, as we saw. I mean, this guy stopped what he was doing, ran out to the car to be able to meet
Right.
with us and everything. So, yeah, man, we had more questions. Obviously, we'll try to have him back on at some point. But anything that stood out to you from that conversation, with him as far as
Yeah, we've obviously being Ravens fans and seeing the specials on the 2000 Super Bowl, things like that. You feel like you kind of heard a majority of the stories, but just hearing that confirmation from him that, yeah, because you've heard that, like, no, the locker room was never against each other and we were
Right.
always for, you kind of hear that and you don't know if that's just posturing for like the public perspective and wanting to make it look better than it was. But I think to hear that from him and him going like, no, we really were unified. We really did not turn on each other. And I think hearing some of the back and forth with him and Dilfer also was funny. That was funny.
Yeah. Well, and it also, the fact, I mean, he right away spoke to his appreciation and affection for Brian Billick and feeling like Billick was the right coach for the job. And then when he goes into those stories about the locker room not being divided and about what things were like when he's, kicking the field goals, going through that 5-game stretch without scoring, it really did kind of make me think that, yeah, there is something to be said for, the right guy at the right time, and how many other teams, even with that same personnel, would not have made it through a situation like that just because you didn't have the right guy in charge, the right coach who's able to find ways and move in the right levers to be able to keep that team together. So yeah, I mean, that's impressive.
Which, everybody's heard the cliche, everything rises and falls on leadership. But I mean, you really look at a dynamic like that. I mean, I'm sure it took some consistent, strong leadership to keep everybody, moving forward.
Strong personalities on that team.
A lot of strong personalities. I mean, Ed and Ray, and those are the notable ones. But I mean, you have Shannon Sharp. You got a lot of those guys on both sides of the ball that are very vocal. Goose, yeah. So on both sides of the ball, you had some very vocal people. So hats off to Billick for being able to keep that locker room together.
Yeah. I mean, it is impressive. And, and really, I think we'd be remiss if we didn't touch on just a little bit the Players Philanthropy Fund that, that Stover's put together. I mean, crazy to think that, what do you say, 29 countries and, so many different professional athletes and all of these things. And it's such a smart thing where it's just like, hey, we'll do all the back office work. We are your platform. And you plug into this and we handle everything. I mean, it's an incredibly smart thing, but people that aren't community minded don't think of that type of an idea for a business. Matt Stover doesn't just come up with that out of the blue, like, hey, I should find a way to make it easier for people to give to charitable causes. Like that's because of who Matt Stover is as a person, that he looks for those opportunities and was creative enough to come up with that, which I'm sure solves problems. And we know it because of the list of people that he mentioned that he has that are, with the fund.
Well, and he joked about, he had to make it through college as a kicker because he wasn't smart enough to make it, but clearly that's not the case. No. Clearly he has a great deal of wisdom. And I think he's the right person for that kind of thing because he's played in the league. He knows, he knows what players go through when it comes to trying to find those tax shelters and even trying to, impact the communities that they're in. So it's, he knows the ins and outs of it. So I think him being able to speak into it with those players, he brings the credibility level of the idea up several notches.
Agreed. So listen, let's take the last few minutes here. We do want to talk a little bit about the NFL playoffs. Now, again, by the time this episode airs, we will know a lot more about who's going to be playing who, what's going to happen. So we can avoid some of the specific, games and things like that for right now. But in general, moving forward, who do you think the Ravens will end up playing? Let's talk about that for a minute. Now again, because at this point, when we're recording this has not been settled yet. So we do not know who the Ravens will play in the divisional round at the time of this recording. I think it's worth kind of having a little conversation around that.
It's funny. You and I have talked about this a little bit. of like, I think if we went back to 2019 and you said, who would you want to play coming out of the bye week? I think we were both pretty happy that we were playing the Titans.
Yeah.
I think we were, we knew they had a strong run game, but we knew also that like the quarterback play wasn't going to be significant, and it wasn't.
They weren't an explosive team.
They weren't explosive. Their defense was kind of middle of the pack, I believe. It wasn't like there was nothing about that team that really scared us. And so we were pretty stoked about playing the Titans. And I think you and I have talked about this a good bit about like, man, I don't know that there's any team that I would look at and go, I really want to play them.
Yeah.
Because you could, I think, take any of the AFC teams. You could, like, do you want to play the Dolphins? Well, yeah, we beat the brakes off of them. But, they could, I talked about like, the Broncos, our Super Bowl year, the Broncos killed us that year. I mean, it was a few games before the end of the year. And
2012 you're referring to.
Yeah. They dismantled, like they tore us up. Like we could not stop Peyton. And so the fact that we were playing them in the playoffs, we were like, man, like, how do you? So I don't know that you can look at any of these teams and go like, well, just because we had a really good win and we beat these guys soundly, we should be able to do it again. That's just not the way this works. And playoff football is so different. I think the Browns, I think the Browns will beat the Texans. So I'm not sure what even our options are at this point. Like who wins which game will influence which one. I haven't.
Well, I think we can play. I believe it's the Browns. Now I got to go back and look because I think it's Browns, Steelers, or Buffalo, if I'm not mistaken. I will say this: the best case scenario for the Ravens, in my opinion, is playing someone who is not in the AFC North, because you need somebody who hasn't seen Lamar twice a year for the last several years. Now, there's one X factor here, and we're seeing this already in the early stages of the playoffs, and that is weather. What Lamar brings to the table, that explosiveness, that elusiveness, those things go away if there's 1.5 feet of snow. So there are some things there that, weather dependent is going to be a major, influence on the games upcoming for the Ravens. They can play in the elements. I mean, again, they have a great running game and those types of things, but it will just make them a more traditional styled team where running backs are running the ball, quarterback is setting up in the pocket and throwing the ball, and take away part of that multidimensional threat that the Ravens normally have that do keep the defense on skates trying to figure out, exactly how to adjust and what to be ready for. So I think weather is going to be potentially a big role player in the playoffs for the Ravens.
Yeah, 100%. And those are like, we look at the Bills, you look at the Chiefs, you go, okay, it might impact them a great deal more than it would us. Us being able to, obviously signing Dalvin Cook and being able to have some weapons now that we can lean on. And I think Lamar, even if you go, okay, it's going to impact his game a good deal. I think it impacts everybody. Because it's going to impact your pass rushers a good deal. Like if you're not getting the grip, you're not getting off the ball. So does it, does some of those things cancel out, over the course of it? If you have a competent running team and a competent offensive line, do some of those things cancel out? Where if you're looking at maybe like the Chiefs, or you're like, man, the running game is insufferable. Like at that point, do you go, all right, you're not going to be able to cancel out and lean on your your run game as much. And how does that affect your receivers getting open? And it throws so much into it where we can't play at your best on either side of the ball.
So I think the thing that's going to be interesting is it's not so much that it limits Lamar. In my mind, it limits what the defense has to worry about from Lamar. Right? That's the thing, is that, okay, Lamar can throw, right? We know he's fully capable of just winning the game, standing in the pocket and throwing the ball and us having a good running game. I think the defense, and we saw this against the Dolphins, right? Having to adjust to that threat, and particularly, and again, the play's been seen, a multitude of times at this point, this time where Lamar takes the snap, but takes it setting up left-handed, which again, you're going to assume as a defender, he's only going to do that if he's running the ball. And then to flip his hips and then turn around and throw that down the sideline to Zay Flowers.
Yep.
As a defender, that half a second of like, well, wait, what's he doing? That gets taken away a little bit if you become a little bit more one-dimensional because of weather. So I'm just curious. We don't know that it'll play a role yet, but I'll be curious to see if it does. And I mean, look, it's going to be a battle for anybody. I mean, the AFC is an absolute meat grinder right now. And if you had to figure out where you'd want to come out of, the AFC or the NFC, I mean, it's NFC all day long. You're going to come out of there way healthier than you will, I believe, more than likely in the AFC.
Yeah, and I mean Lamar obviously he does very well against the NFC, and so I think he's 20-3 against the NFC. So obviously they don't see him as, you made that statement of the AFC North and not wanting to play. I mean, I don't want to play Flacco,
right.
And they have a solid defense, and Flacco can, he can, like, they're a dangerous team to me. The Steelers, I don't want to play them. They beat us twice this year, so you look at that and go, despite the fact that you would look at them on paper and go, there's no way you're keeping up. They're going to keep up. It's who they are. And so, there's a lot that goes into it. I think in 2012, that was a tough run. I mean, you got to play Peyton and Brady, both of them on the road, both of them in frigid condition. Like, they weren't ideal. I mean, it wasn't snow on the ground, but it was still brutally cold.
Yeah.
Flacco always played really well in the cold. He managed the game really well in the cold. He was. And so you look at, like, we had a tough run then. We had a near impossible run then. And I think this is going to be another one of those years where you go, if you make it to the Super Bowl, it's going to be hard to lose it. And now, of course, you and I went to the Super Bowl, and we were there in 2012. And I mean, the amount of 49ers fans that you know what I'm saying, that like are talking trash to us, even just walking into the stadium, telling us like, man, it's a shame you wasted your money coming here. And, they were pretty, but from our perspective, we're going like, I don't know. We just beat Brady and
I don't
Manning.
think you know who we are yet.
Do you see like who we just beat to get here? We're not that worried about Colin Kaepernick, And we were more worried about their defense than anything, with Patrick Willis and, those guys. So, yeah.
Well, yeah, and I think too, the other aspect is when we are coming through the gauntlet that the Ravens did in the month of December. Yeah, there's one thing, you and I texted about this, but I just think it's so important to touch on. Lamar Jackson was just named AFC Offensive Player of the Month for the month of December. The teams that he had to go against in the month of December it was a slate of games that you and I had talked about, just going, man, can we win 2 of those? Can we win 3? Maybe. I mean, this is the Niners. It's the Dolphins. It's the Rams. It's the Jaguars. Now, the Jags didn't end up making the playoffs because we helped that downfall and that slide continue.
Well, the whole AFC North, like they lost.
But the point is that it's like when you look at the teams that the Ravens had to go through, and not all of those were home games. You literally had to go cross country to San Francisco or Santa Clara to play the Niners Christmas night. Then you turn around and travel back on a short week to play the Dolphins on New Year's Eve. Like, that is as challenging. That is, you're playing the number 1 team in the NFC on the road and then have to travel back to play what we now know would have been the number 2 team in the AFC at home on a short week. And to have been able to do that, and then not just win those games, not just win all of those games, other than the Pittsburgh game that didn't mean anything at the end of the season. Yeah. But to win all of those games, and not just to win them, but for Lamar to be Offensive Player of the Month for the AFC. Yep. I just think that says so much about really where the maturity level is of this team. And really where the mentality is, that it's like, we can look anybody in the eye now and recognize we've already taken their best shot. We've beat everybody. That doesn't mean we can do it again, right? We've got to go out and do it. But I just think the confidence that can come from that, and the understanding that, like, no, it's been as tough as it's going to be for us. Right. And again, not unlike what Matt Stover was talking about with that 2000 Ravens team. We went 5 games without scoring a touchdown. it's as bad. It's been as bad as it's going to be for us.
Right.
And we won. And we've moved through the playoffs, and now you get to the Super Bowl. It's almost a foregone conclusion. You know,
Yep.
when the Ravens played the Giants in 2000, it was kind of like you and I at least felt like there was zero chance that game was going to be lost. It was already written in stone
No,
that the Ravens were going to win that.
the run game is something we were worried about. Yeah, Thunder and
Yeah.
Lightning back then. So
Yeah.
you had Ron Dane, and so you're like, okay, like that may present a problem.
Yeah.
Because they had just blew out like in the NFC Championship. I mean, that's what created a little bit of uneasiness because you're like, okay, well these guys can ball out.
Yeah.
No, I think you're right. I think if I remember correctly, we had the toughest strength of schedule in that stretch in the entire NFL. We had the toughest stretch as far as strength of schedule. So I think if you're looking at 2019, I think you would go, okay, that would have a tendency to build a false sense of confidence in future games, or if we're playing these guys again. I think we're a different team now, been through enough now where you go, okay, I don't know that it would build a false sense of confidence. I think it would build the right confidence to go, okay, we're not going to take it for granted. We did it, but we're not going to take it for granted. Like, we're still going to have to bring it. We can't expect 5 interceptions again against Purdy.
Right.
We can't expect that many tipped passes to just land in our hands. And so, because to their point, if you read like the comments, whatever, they still moved the ball really well against us.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
They didn't have a problem going up and down the field. They just had a problem finishing. But that is the difference. That's what makes that's the difference between you winning the game and losing the game, is that execution. And we could tell you the same thing about that Titans game in 2019. We didn't have a problem moving the ball. We had almost 500 yards of offense. So it wasn't like we had a problem moving the ball. It was the same exact scenario as like when we played the 49ers. We just turned the ball over, couldn't finish, couldn't convert fourth and ones.
Yeah.
It was just tough.
No, and I think now you see where the Ravens defense is this season. I mean, now this first Triple Crown winner on defense in the modern era. I mean, that's just never been seen before.
Yeah.
And so it's still not as good by far as the 2000 Ravens defense, but you can't be nowadays. It's just that's just not a thing. The league's not built for that. But this idea, and actually, Matt hit on this. I think it's so important. He was saying that, like, for Lamar, stay in your head, stay in your place, let the defense do its thing. Sometimes, and we know this, we've seen it in so many games, sometimes it's just a grind. Sometimes it's a battle of attrition, and you're just waiting. So don't be the one who blinks first. Don't be the one who tries too hard to force it and throws the costly pick. Don't be the one who tries too much to get that extra yard and fumbles. Just play within yourself. Stay within the game plan, because the games are long and you have the best defense in the NFL. So if you have that, let that work. And it doesn't happen in the first quarter, right?
No.
It happens in that third and that fourth quarter that you start to see on a lot of these games. That's when the wheels start to come off of the Ravens opponents, because it's a grind having to go against that defense for an entire game and think you're not going to make mistakes. It's just,
and I remember hearing Roquan
tough.
even say, like, sometimes it takes him a quarter to really get settled into what the other team is doing. But it does seem like once they get locked into what the other team's trying to do, once they get settled in, I mean, they let the dogs out, and they get so hyper aggressive. And I think it's an intelligent aggression.
Yes.
It's not just like
controlled.
Like it is very calculated aggression. It's not an immature aggression. So I think that's just the veteran leadership there, and seeing a lot of stuff over time.
Yeah. Yeah, man, I'm excited. I'm excited to see what the Ravens are going to do. Hopefully this is a long playoff run. Yeah. So, we're going to be doing these, these episodes. The plan will be, before and after probably each game, not immediately before and immediately after, but, just in preparation. And, the hope is that we got to do a bunch of them, right? The hope is we're going to, have a deep run here in these playoffs. We talked with Matt Stover before we started actually recording, and, he was talking about just, how impressed he's been with the Ravens and how, he believes they're going to be able to go on a run from the things that he's seen. And again, say what you want to say, a kicker, any other role. The guy played 20 years in the NFL.
Oh, yeah.
When you go to a Ravens game, you look around inside that stadium, that man's name is one of
That's
only
right.
a handful
That's
that are
right.
in the Ring of Honor.
Yep.
And that's something that I just think you can't overlook, you can't minimize, right? I mean, that is such an impressive thing. I mean, it's a monument, literally a monument to, now again, all 20 years of his career, no, he did not play in Baltimore. But the vast majority of his career, he played in Baltimore. And being in that Ring of Honor is a monument to what he accomplished with us. And it's just amazing. I mean, you think drafted by the Giants, plays for the Browns, the Ravens. We didn't get a chance to touch on the fact that he did have 1 year with the Colts. After he left the Ravens, and with Peyton Manning, who they went 14-2 that year. And then they lost that Super Bowl to the New Orleans Saints. And we didn't get a chance to touch on that. But I mean, this is a guy who's been to 3 Super Bowls and won 2 of them. And so, really, we were kind of just listening and taking in what he had to say about the team. And again, this is even before we started recording.
But hopefully we get to have him back and ask some of those additional questions that we had for him. And and he was fun to talk to. He mentioned that he lived in Baltimore for 21 years. So he said that. So it wasn't like he finished his time with the Ravens. He's like, I'm out. Like, clearly he put down roots there. And even though he played for several teams, I think he would go, nah, I'm a Raven. Like, and he even said it before when we were talking to him before we started recording, where he was like, I hate the Steelers. He's which you like. You love to hear that. You love to hear that he is.
He volunteered that, just for anyone listening to this. He volunteered out of the blue to us that he hates the Steelers. We did not ask about the Steelers at all. We didn't ask his thoughts on the Steelers. We were just kind of loosely talking a little bit about the playoffs and stuff like that. And he was like, well, I hate the Steelers. I'll tell you that right now. And it was like, okay, bro. Well, so do we, but no one asked.
But we would be happy to volunteer that same information. Like,
you're in the right place. You're in the right place.
He still bleeds purple. So I think that's a great thing. I hope we have him back. He was a great conversation.
Yeah, really was. So anything else for you before we wrap this sucker up? I think we've given the people a suitable amount, actually probably a little too much entertainment. It's excess. We've gone over the line on how much entertainment they've gotten. But honestly, for me, when I was going through this, right, this is our kickoff show for this. And the intention was, okay, let's start it off with a bang. And man, we were able to do that really well. So again, I just one more time really want to sincerely thank Matt Stover.
Thanks, Matt Stover,
for joining us and being so generous with his time and his stories. What a heck of a storyteller! I mean, here's one thing that's different, right? We get a chance. I might shoot Matt a text or something about this later. Nowadays, a guy gets done playing and he's going into media.
Yeah.
In Stover's day, that avenue may not have been there, but what a guy that would have been perfect for it, right? A great storyteller, great personality, easygoing, good-looking dude who could plug right into TV. Like, everything is set up for him. Just a different time, different era. Back then that wasn't your thing. And nowadays, if Matt Stover played now and had just retired, that dude's going to be in a booth somewhere. He's going to be in a studio somewhere.
Great personality for it. I mean, just so easy to talk to. He kept the conversation flowing. I mean, just the back and forth was great. I mean, he was a consummate professional, obviously, as a kicker, as a football player, as a 501c3, owner. Like, I mean, it seems like just in every area of his life, consummate professional. And I think what a great person to have on the show to kick off hopefully more of these podcasts where it's more celebration than heartbreak. That's what we're hoping for this year.
Yes. We want to have some fun with it, and hopefully we will. I think we will. I'm cautiously optimistic. But I did not want to call this the Cautiously Optimistic Show.
That's right.
But again, working title is still in flux. So who knows? Maybe the Cautiously Optimistic Ravens Preview Show will. It's a little wordy, but it might be what makes sense for us.
Sure, featuring Matt Stover. I mean, that's all we're right. Out there. Yeah,
that's smart. You got to feature Matt Stover.
We'll have him back for the next one, and that's be blessed.
It's our good luck charm. So anyway, that's it for us. Again, everybody, thank you for tuning in. Thank you for checking us out. There will be more. If you're listening on the podcast, make sure you check out our YouTube channel. because we got clips on there. We've got a lot of stuff. And, the episodes are going to air there first. Episodes drop on YouTube typically a day or two before they reach the podcast platforms. And of course, obviously, if you are watching and listening on YouTube, make sure you check out the podcast as well, because it's a lot easier to listen to when you're in your car or something like that. A whole lot easier there. So anyway, stay tuned. More to come. Go Ravens.
Go Ravens.
And we'll talk to you all soon. Thanks, everybody.